HIPcast is brought to you by Enterprise Social Record.
Well, this is one of our favorite times of the year. Anytime we get to talk about our leadership, our volunteer leadership, or recap the annual meeting or House of Delegates or anything like that, and talk about real member impact business on the show, it just is a different vibe altogether. And so we love it. And so today we are going to talk to our selected president-elect candidates for the next AHIMA president-elect for this upcoming election. So we have Daniel Utek in the beginning of the show today. Hey, Daniel, welcome.
How you doing?
Doing great. We're so glad you're here.
Radio voice there.
He does have a radio voice, but he doesn't have a face for radio.
That's
so
what I'm going to say next.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Well, it is funny that Shannon said Daniel, and we had a conversation before we started rolling, because I've always known you as Daniel. Some people know you as Dan, but we learned not to call you Danny, and that's okay. So welcome. As Shannon said, we're going to go through and have a conversation with both candidates, just to give you an opportunity to share more with our membership. We want those membership numbers, or not membership. Well, we want the membership numbers up, but we want the voting percentage up. What do we average? It's like sub 10% or around 10 to 12% every year. Come on, people. Like, there's tens of people that listen to our podcast. We can at least increase those percentages somehow. So, but let's get started here, because we do have two guests on this episode. So we always like to ask, just tell the members and those listening, tell us about your HI journey. How did you find this crazy profession?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on your guys' HIPcast again. You know, I know it's fun to listen to your guests, so I'm proud to be able to be one of them. I think for me, you know, the HI journey, like you had mentioned, that was started with a transition from Dan to Daniel. You know, I worked in restaurant industry and retail for several years before I found my way into the profession. And I started, I think, like many folks, and you're like, well, I want to be on the patient care side of things. And I learned pretty quick through my undergraduate nursing program at the time that the sights and smells and sounds of bedside care was not for me. You know, and my mom was a nurse, so she was like, you know, oh, come on, you can do it. You know, I'm like, I want a job where I don't have to do it ever. She's like, won't be very often. I'm like, no, never, like that part. And so I was able to take, you know, my ability to do kind of health IT stuff pretty well and mix it with the nursing education I'd already gotten, and found my way into the health information management profession through the College of St. Scholastica. I was lucky to already be there, and they had a really great leadership team in their program, very supportive mentors. And so I was very lucky to kind of already be there and be able to fall into it in that capacity. And then, you know, from that, I was able to do several different, you know, practicums around the country, and landed in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the University of New Mexico Hospital. And from there, had a great leader and mentor that was able to kind of run me through the gambit in several different leadership roles, starting with transcription, right? I had the OG work from home team, right? 100 plus people working from home. And it was funny, like the first problem I had to solve was one that seemed insurmountable to the staff at the time. Like, we have this Verizon phone call and we can't figure it out. We try to do this for our team meeting every month and not everybody can join. The first like 40 people that would call in would get in, everybody else had to get the notes. And I'm like, that's silly. I'm like, let me just call Verizon. I called them like, oh yeah, you want to bump it up to however many people you want, same price. I was like, well, that was easy. First thing, check, you know. And so I think like I feel like for me it's the same kind of idea, you know, looking at and having the opportunity to serve on, you know, different CA presidencies that I've served on throughout the years. You know, New Mexico was my first journey and presidency of the board for the New Mexico Association, and you know, not a lot of members there. Not a lot of money, right? Because at the end of the day, that's where our CAs get funding from, is our membership. And so for that, it was really kind of tricky, kind of figure out financially, how can we do this? You know, so looking at different negotiation tactics with the vendors as well as with the local venues to be able to find a way to make, you know, good member events where people could connect with one another and get good information to learn about, what's coming and to be able to kind of sustain their current work. From there, I was, playing words with friends with a HIM leader that I'd met in my first time visiting the AHIMA Hill Day event, was what they called it back in the day, before it became the Advocacy
Yeah.
Summit. And played words with friends with that person, just for funsies, for several years. And they messaged me there one day and be like, "Hey, would you take a job someplace else in New Mexico?" And I was like, "Maybe." So then, they sent me a link to apply for a job in Texas, and that, brought me to the Dallas-Fort Worth market in Texas, and I worked there for several different healthcare organizations, with the last one being Parkland Health, and really enjoyed the opportunity to serve that community there through organizations like Parkland Health. And it was just great because I was able to also expand my kind of my scope in health information. I worked in operations. We had a huge warehouse there with so much loose filing. It was the length of a football field stacked side, piece of paper to piece of paper. It was an incredible thing. So again, I got there and I'm like, well, we got a new problem to solve, because we can't have all this loose filing out here. So I worked with the team and we were able to figure out how to get all that filed and put away within that first couple of months. And then we had two warehouses. One was in terminal digit order, the other one wasn't. It was
Oh,
close. It was terminal digit side quest, you know. And so we had to figure out how to consolidate the two warehouses, but also to get that one into the terminal digit filing. But of course, that's again transcription, terminal digit filing. That's kind of some old school stuff, but it's still out there. It's not like it doesn't exist. And being able to transition at Parkland from that into their IT department and working with the patient portal, working with developing business cases for the entire enterprise was really rewarding. I was able to find ways to, I insisted on updating our job descriptions to include the RHIA as a requirement. Not, they wouldn't let me make it a requirement. I could make it preferred though, right? And I think for me that was a big leap in my opinion, because it allowed me to get those candidates from the HIM department. Now maybe they weren't so happy with me, but I was able to get some HIMers to come on over to the IT team and really bring that expertise that we have in the interstitial fluid of the healthcare system. We are the thing in between everything else, but
it's
without us,
true.
it doesn't function.
Mm.
And so that was really a rewarding opportunity to be able to mentor and coach HIMers in that space, and see that growth and see the impact that we had on patients and our healthcare team. So I think that was really a big part of that. And throughout that, like I did do some teaching with DeVry as an adjunct, and that's what I'm doing now with College of St. Scholastica, full circle, back there again, teaching in their master's program for Masters of Healthcare Administration and the Masters of HIM program. So again, it's a great opportunity there, and I'm enjoying that. I'm a glutton for punishment, so I've been working on a PhD, and doing that. I'm in my final throes. I've finished all the coursework, and been doing my dissertation now, working on that. I was working on it with Parkland, and a few different hospitals on that. And we were looking at was using a large language model like ChatGPT to translate patient portal messages from Spanish to English. And really, it's an access and equity issue, right? We have a limited English proficient patient population in the United States. That's not going away. It's going to grow, and really, we got to figure out a way to be able to help them. And I always wonder if it's cart before horse with all this technology we got. I'm a Star Trek fan, and the Universal Translator is just kind of that next iteration of technology we're taking from the 1950s and 60s science fiction
Yeah.
into the 21st century. And so it's really kind of an interesting thing to think about. Can we have a tool that works but doesn't cause patient harm? And I think that's the big key thing, is making sure that in that vendor space, where we're all very excited about new technology, making sure that it comes in a way that doesn't cause patient harm, that identifies how humans are going to be involved, and where our expertise is really going to be able to make that the best ideal situation for our patients. So for me, it's been a really fun journey, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm looking forward to the end of the calendar year to defend my dissertation and be done with that. But I'm sure I'll find another thing to occupy my time. And I think part of that is why I'm here, right? Is I want to continue my service on the board. I've had a great opportunity to serve our members as a director on the board, and I think we've made some pretty big leaps and bounds in that member service in the last year or so. And I feel like as a member, we can feel those changes. And I want to see that continue to change. Not to mention, we made a big purchase at AHIMA with HC Pro. And that's a huge part of our business, and finding ways that we can integrate those services that HC Pro already does so that our members can benefit from them. And I already have some of that expertise and knowledge in that space around that. And then last but not least, the opportunity to be the treasurer of the board. I've been on the finance and audit committee my whole tenure, but that treasurer, responsibility and making sure I'm holding AHIMA and our leadership teams accountable to the strategy that the board has set, in response to that thing, the communications we get from members, from the House of Delegates, from venues like this. And so I think for me, it's really just an opportunity to serve and continue that service to our members and see that continued growth.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Seth and I, and you've been on the show several times. So Seth and I, and now many of our listeners and the community at large, we've seen you in service to AHIMA in volunteer capacities in many state level, national level. And so we've definitely seen that. So tell us why you're running for the AHIMA president-elect, and really why now? Why is this the right time for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, a lot of it comes back to I'm just dedicated to the profession. I've been in some volunteer capacity since before I graduated my undergraduate, right? I started in the Student Health Information Management Association and have been involved since then, right? I ran a COP back in the day for personal health records. But at the end of the day, I think now HEMA's, in my opinion, very much been focused on how can we make things better. And I've been able to sit on the board and help hold them accountable, hold our leadership and the board accountable to those things that we need as members. And those changes, I think, are continuing to grow, and being able to serve in the capacity of president chair elect will allow me to build upon that growth and really continue to provide continuity for us as members, where we've seen the positive changes here in the last year or so, where we've seen our finances are in a tremendous place. If you haven't been able to, hear the details on that at one of the CA meetings or in one of our town halls, we're in a very strong financial position, which is great as AHIMA, because that means we can provide better member services. At the same time, for me, it's an opportunity to look at the future, right? So not only create stability for our membership today, but also to kind of look into the future, right? So my PhD, research is in using AI within healthcare patient portals, with leveraging governance and information quality. And I think AHIMA and HIM as a whole has a really good opportunity here that we should take advantage to be able to cement that governance, make sure things are done right, make sure things are done in a way that we can code things properly, make sure things are done in a way that they can be reimbursed, that they're done in a way that maintains the privacy and security and compliance that we expect and that we are experts in. And then even just doing release of information, that can't happen without some human in the loop at some point in the process. But if you don't have HIM involved and AHIMA's not leading that conversation with executives around the country and with the regulators in DC, it's not going to happen. And we've seen this happen before with other things. And I think now is the time for me to continue that mission. Like I said, to keep that stability for our membership, to continue to improve the services we offer for members first, and then to think about that future around AI governance and making sure we have membership, right? We've seen a decline in our membership. So how do we make that membership irresistible? How do we continue to provide services where we are combining things that HC Pro already does well and bringing that into our membership? So when you pay for your membership at AHIMA, you get these other additional pieces because AHIMA owns that product. AHIMA already owns those services. So for me, that's a big part of it. It's the community has given so much back to me over the last almost 20 years that I think it's the least I can do to be of service to you in the community.
Very good. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if it's nostalgia or you're scratching some old wounds of calling the telecom providers to increase the number of callers that can call into a line, which is funny today because it's like we can have thousands of people on a virtual call, and then even calling it the Hill Day because that was back in the day when we were on the policy and the policy committee up there with Lauren, and it's like I miss the Hill Day nomenclature, but yeah, you're hitting some nostalgia there for me, but that's all very good, and I think that's a great introduction to folks that may not know Dan or Daniel. That's going to be voting here soon. We'll put another reminder out there to vote for those that are listening. But to wrap up this section before we head to the next candidate, what's your final pitch to members to vote for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to bring continuity to the role, certainly, as not only as being a board director for the last 2.5 years now, we're ending here at this calendar year, but also serving as the president of Dallas Fort Worth HIM Association, that regional CA, state CAs in Texas and in New Mexico. So I really understand what the CAs mean to us as members, and how do we help them continue to not only just survive but thrive, because that's where most of the connections that us members have are with our CAs. They aren't with AHIMA. The AHIMA connections are there, but largely it's the CAs. So I think I really understand that well. My fiscal responsibility and understanding of the finances, both at AHIMA and HC Pro, I think will put me in a great position to continue to hold accountable our organization to make sure that, again, members get the services that we expect to see on a regular basis, and the CAs get the reports they expect to see on a regular basis with the quality they expect to see on a regular basis. And then I think finally, for me, it's that future focused look on things, right? Like I said, I've been and I continue to do research on AI and how that information quality component comes into play. And so for me, it's really thinking about members first, future focus, and thinking about that current state of continued progress and growth for our members.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on and talk with you. We'll remind, as Seth said, we'll remind everyone to vote. I would love to see us blow our previous several years of voting percentages out of the water and double or triple those just for engagement. And we're in a good place. We're, as AHIMA, where we are as professionals, we're in a good place, and catapulting us forward. Would be great to get a lot of votes. So thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to move on to our next candidate.
We're continuing on with our president-elect candidates for the AHIMA position that will be on the ballot coming out very soon. And we're here with the second candidate, Elizabeth Delahousie. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you guys so much for letting me join HIPcast. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. Well, it's we'll ask the same questions that we asked the previous candidate, and again, this the point of this is just for the audience and general membership to get to know the candidates, and they can make an informed decision on their voting. We want voting numbers to come up, so we want all the HIPcast listeners to vote in the AHIMA election that's coming up in July. So. We'll start with Elizabeth. The first question is to tell the audience about your HI journey. How'd you get into this crazy thing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long story, because I actually did not start in health information management. I actually started in business administration. And well, actually, if you go back just a little bit further, I started out in pre-law. And then when I was younger, as I started out at University of Tennessee, I realized, hey, that's so much time to go to undergrad and the law school. And so I changed over to business administration. And then when I got married, I moved down to Louisiana, and I'm really going to date myself a little bit on this one. So, but for those of you guys who may be younger, we used to get books with all the degrees in them. I know. And I remember going through the book, and there was this degree in registered record administrator. And I thought, well, this is really interesting because of the fact that it touched upon law. And I thought, man, I think I want to do this. I want to try this and see what this is like. And I decided to go back to school to University of Louisiana, and ended up, graduating from there. And I started out working with a vendor and as a supervisor for a release of information company, and actually got the opportunity to move back from Louisiana back up to Tennessee, and started out at a hospital there, and then worked my way up where I was supervisor. And then I ended up being a district manager and then a regional manager, and which was great. Absolutely loved it. But I wanted to see what it was like on the other side, not being a vendor. And so I had decided to step into the HIM director role. Did that for a few years at a hospital system not far outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, called Blount Memorial Hospital System. And I was there for a couple of years. absolutely, loved it, have the utmost respect for HIM directors. It just wasn't something necessarily that I felt like fit my, passion. And so I had the opportunity to go back and work for a vendor again in the release of information world. And then I just moved up the ranks from there, where I finished up being a senior vice president of release of information. And then we merged with another company. And when we merged with that other company, they created a more robust privacy department. And because of that, I was named as the chief privacy officer. And what was great about that was I had the opportunity to go into that role and actually make more of involvement, I guess is the right word I'm trying to think of what privacy should have in an organization, as far as with not only vendors, but obviously healthcare organizations. And I was able to develop like an audit program. I had audit managers that reported to me. We did on-site audits that were aligned with what the Office for Civil Rights had. Was able to grow the department, where initially we had approximately about 4 people in the department, and then finished it up where we had about 16. So it was really incredible to watch how my organization I worked for at that time was really embracing the importance of privacy and having that stronger relationship with our operations team, and they looking at us like subject matter experts. And so then I left and went to another company, which I absolutely love. And they have, the same philosophy I had a few years ago, as far as really understanding the importance of that integration of privacy in partnership with operations. So then that way the organization as a whole was successful. So that's kind of my journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We all have people we call that are the experts in something, and you're definitely our one of our release of information and privacy people that we would call on. So we've seen you, Seth, and I, and many members in Tennessee as well as across the country, have seen you in service at the local and the state and the national level for many, many, many years. You've been very active in your membership and in your volunteer service to AHIMA. So why are you running for AHIMA president-elect this year, and why now?
Yeah, well, now, honestly, I think it's the perfect time. I mean, HIM is on the verge or right in the middle of a huge transformation. Technology is moving so fast paced. I mean, think about this. 5 years ago, if somebody mentioned the word AI, we would all be like, what does that mean? Whereas now it's in our standard vocabulary almost on a daily basis. More than likely it is a daily basis. And as HIM professionals, we need to be in the forefront of this conversation. We are the ones who understand the life and the death of a medical record. We understand the beginning and the end of it. And so where that technology needs to fit in there. And so as I've watched HIM or, technology evolved, I'm like, okay, we need to have a strong voice at a national level to be able to articulate while you're talking to other federal agencies, legislators, things like that, to be able to understand the day in and day process. The second reason why now is we've had a lot of changes at AHIMA at the national level. And because of that, I think that there is a great opportunity to really start building on transparency. There needs to be a trust factor rebuilding. We need to make sure that we're listening to our members. And when I say listen to the members, like listen, not, oh, but we're already doing this, or, oh, that's a really good idea. I mean, like, listen to our members. They have been trying to talk to their national leaders for an extended period of time. And I think there's a little bit of, am I being heard? Is what our association, is it really doing what I need for my career path? And so I think this is the time that with, again, the transformation and then being heard, that we have an opportunity to really push forward AHIMA and our members to say, look, it's not that we're an expert in just one area. We have subject matter experts in a phenomenal amount of areas. And because of that, that's the reason why you need to listen to us, because our members are telling us what's happening real time. It's great that it looks, wonderful on a piece of paper, but we all know that operationally, when things get implemented, it's not always as pretty as it was on that piece of paper. So that's, I know the reason why when I debated on putting my name on the ballot, I was like, if I'm going to do it, this is now when I want to do it.
And you've got a history of volunteering. Shannon touched on it a little bit. You and I served together as delegates in the House of Delegates back when in the Tennessee days when we were on the board together, and that was a fun experience. But you served in several roles from a volunteer perspective, right?
I did. So, I started out at the local association, right? When you talk about, in the Knoxville area, I started out as president there, and then, went and volunteered for, again, we're going to date myself a little bit, the legal committee that we had at Tennessee HIMA, then was elected as, president-elect, and then past president. And then I had the opportunity to actually serve on the board of directors of AHIMA. I was the speaker of the House of Delegates for a period of time. And so I had that opportunity to do that. And then, still, even after I finished that role, continued to volunteer for AHIMA. I served on the Privacy and Security Council. Anytime there was an opportunity to present and educate, I was definitely there, both at the national level and at state levels. I think that's one of the things that, as much as this profession has given to me, it's very important that I give back to the profession by providing that education. And then, just recently, in the last few years, I got reelected again as, president-elect, and then president and past president for the state of Tennessee as well. And I'm one of those people that when somebody asks for help, are you looking for, or we're needing somebody to do something, I will be like, what can I do? Because I do think it's really important. And I think the other thing that's great about, serving our members in this role is that you get that opportunity to hear what their pain points are that sometimes you don't always get that opportunity to hear when you're just, sitting in your own little respective office. So that's one of the other reasons I like to, not just their pain points, but then they come up to me and they tell me things that maybe I'm not even aware of. And so they're educating me too. And that's fantastic, because then I can take that piece of education, do a little bit of research and go, hey, we probably need to expand upon this. What do we need to tell, again, all the other members about what's going on in this particular area? So then that way they're aware of it too. Because I think that's really important, is that those silos that we see, or have seen, is really more past tense, because states do a phenomenal job of breaking the silos down. But, some of them still occur in the components association. But, the members maybe sometimes just focus on their own state. So let's make sure every state is aware of what the pressure points are. Because if it's happening in the state of Tennessee, more than likely that same pressure point is happening in the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true. That's good. So as we round it up here, what's your final pitch for members to vote for Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think that voting for me, one, I have obviously an extensive amount of experience as far as volunteering. This is probably it's second nature to me. I've been volunteering since, I graduated from college. And so, I come in with that experience, and that experience, I think, is really important to understand, is not just at a state level, it is at a national level. And, and I think that the great part of all of that is that I can walk in with knowing what the history of something was, why this decision was made. But yet, because of the role I hold in my organization, I have to be strategic. And so even though that was the way the history was, I understand what the future holds too, and how to make sure that we're not losing, obviously, who we are while still growing to make sure that we're being recognized. And I know that if I get elected into this position, that I will be able to continue to help that membership to be able to still hold on to their grassroots, but to at the same time make sure that we're at the forefront of some very important conversations that are going on nationally and at the state levels as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. So, for our listeners, I want to clarify. Seth said we want all of our listeners to vote, but if you're not an AHIMA member, please don't vote. you should
Oh, yeah.
you should only be voting if you are a qualified member to do so. There are a couple of things to add to the end of this to wrap this up. There is a new method this year for voting. You will receive an email when it comes time for the election. Somewhere around that time, you will get an email from AHIMA. So make sure to check your spam folder. It is specific to you. You can't forward it to someone else and them click on it and be able to vote. Therefore, in our show notes for this, we will not be able to put the link to go vote. It won't be there this year. So make sure you pay attention to your emails in July. Additionally, please vote. If you are a member of AHIMA and whether you're interested in the daily operations or the business of AHIMA or not, this is your profession. You have gone to school to be certified and credentialed in this work that we do, and you probably love it like we do. So please go vote. Cast your vote for every, whatever's on the ballot. There'll be board of directors, the AHIMA president-elect. There's probably some CCHM and CEE commissioners as well. So be watching for the ballot. Be watching, paying attention to the AHIMA communications that will come out in probably now until July when the election is running. So go vote. It's different this year. Change is okay as long as you can still get to what you need to. So go vote. It'll be great.
That's right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us, and we hope that our HIPcast audience appreciates the opportunity to learn more about the candidates that we're electing to our president chair-elect of AHIMA for this year's 26th AHIMA election. Shannon, until next time, my friend.
I'll see you next time, buddy.